Hey guys, I'm Pascal from Orange Pixel and today's topic is Groundskeeper 2, my biggest failure. Wait, what? First, I don't think the game is terrible. I think the game has a lot of great stuff in it, and I actually reused some of those things in the new Gunslugs I'm creating, but I also reused some of the things in previous games I've created after Groundskeeper 2, and I don't think it's the worst game I've made. It just underperformed. Sad but true. I think it took me 3 or 4 months to create the game. It was first gonna be a platform game, and then it finally turned back into an arena game, and it was based on Groundskeeper 1, which was originally a free little game I created for a game jam, meaning I had like 24 hours or maybe 48 hours to create a game in a very low resolution. There wasn't a lot of room to do stuff, so I figured a left and right shooting thingy, and it was a fun little game. Just very basic with not a lot of time in it, of course, because it was a jam game. So with Groundskeeper 2 I figured I could create a bigger game with the same concept, just improve on it and add more to it. But in the first month of development I lost sight of everything I wanted to create, and it turned into a platform game pretty much like Gunslugs. After a month of work on the game, I figured this wasn't the direction I should take the game, so I turned it back into a single screen arena type shooter. And then I finally got everything together, and I started adding multiple weapons, items, enemies, different worlds, and there was a game there, and it was pretty interesting with a few funny mechanics. So let's just talk about some of the positive stuff of this game. Alright, the coolest feature in this game is the risk and reward system I've built into it. Not sure how I came up with everything, but there are multiple risk and reward systems going on while you're playing. The first one is pretty obvious. Shooting enemies is not helping your score, but when you shoot an enemy, something drops out of it. Collecting whatever drops out, that's added to your score. So the more stuff you collect, the higher your score is. Of course, these drop things are often in the middle of other enemies. So are you gonna try and grab these things but have the risk of being shot or hurt by enemies, or do you let them vanish within a few seconds and rather shoot other enemies? Shooting doesn't give you any points, collecting does, so there's a little system that you have to balance out there. Are you gonna go for the risky stuff or just rather stay safe and have a lower score? The second risk and reward system is the fact that after collecting enough little bits and pieces, the portal opens to the next world, and going through the portal will restore your energy completely. So there is another choice you have to make. Are you gonna stay there and hope you will survive, or are you gonna go through the portal and make sure you have those 9 lives back again and can start all over in another world? The downside might be that the next world is most likely a more difficult world, as they are rotating from easiest world to the last one. Most of these worlds will get harder as you go through the portal. Another choice you need to make while playing. And finally, we have weapons and items floating everywhere around you. You can try and grab them, you'll need to jump for them, but obviously it will also put you in harm's way. So you need to make a choice. Are you gonna grab that item, or are you gonna leave it there because the zone is too hot to move there, so you're not gonna collect it? You rather wait and hope there's another item spawning near you. All these little things are in the game, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. And even though the game is pretty simple, having all these little mechanics going on is what makes it a very interesting game, and hopefully a very fun game for most people. The worst feature of the game is a tough one. I'm not sure. I think the game is maybe a little bit too small. There's not a lot of content there. There could have been more enemies, there could have been more items, there could have been just a little more of everything. It's a small game, it's a tiny game, it's still a lot of fun, but it's very small, arcadey like shooter like we had back in the day. And being released in 2014, it might have just been not the type of game to release at that point, because games got bigger and bigger. Even tiny indie games got bigger and bigger, and this one was just a very tiny game. Still, I think it's a good game, but it could have been a better game by just making it bigger. The most unique feature about this game for me as a developer was probably using voice acting in the little animations. In hindsight, I think the voice acting could have been left out of the game. It doesn't really add a lot to it, but it was still fun to just figure out how do you add voice acting to a game and what do you need for this.
Oh, very nice! Yes, With all this shrapnel, I can create new weapons and tools!
Great, I can use some help.
Just for those people wondering, it's not my voice. I hired somebody who does voice acting, and he hired somebody else to do the female voice, and I'm not really sure if the quality of both voices was just as good as it could have been, and maybe it could have been better. And these days maybe I could do a lot of it myself or just wouldn't do it at all, because I don't think it adds anything to the game. I figured it would, but it didn't, so I'm not really sure why I bothered with it. It was just another resource that needed to be paid, and the game did poorly, so it wasn't really worth it in the end.
You did the best you could, I guess.
And that's the story of Groundskeeper 2. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, it underperformed. I don't think it's my worst game ever. I think I created some worse games years before that. But yeah, it underperformed, which is sad because nobody likes to see an underperforming game. Luckily, I learned a lot from it. I reused some of the things I learned and techniques, especially from the platform version. The month I really made this game into a platformer, a lot of those things got reused in Gunslugs 2. So it wasn't a complete waste of time. I mean, the sales were around 5,000 euros in total, which is terrible, basically. But the game didn't cost much more than that either. So it's not a terrible loss, it never was. It's just very sad to see a fun game underperform like that. But enough's enough. Let's just continue with new games, better games, greater games. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.